Welcome to Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Being a fireman, father, veteran, husband, world record holder, and Ironman, he brings stories of experience to impact your life while challenging you to live it. What do you want from your life? Why do you want it? Are you willing to go through the challenges to get there? If you have the courage to take that first step, let this podcast be the catalyst to start your fire while you bring the resilience to make it continue to burn. Our lives are made up of moments called right nows. So let's get started. Forged in the Fires podcast with your host, Fireman Rob, begins now.
All right, welcome back to Forged in the Fires podcast. I'm your host, Fireman Rob. Today's guest, guess what? It is her first time ever to be a guest on a podcast. You know, I wanted to pick her because her history and her story is so powerful, and she is the glue that keeps together this man like called Doug, and a lot of other people who are going through trauma in the first responder community. But she's also a teacher, so she keeps the glue. She's the glue for a lot of kids. So Karen Monda, thank you so much for being on the show today.
Hi, Rob. I'm so happy to be here. I'm really excited to be here, though, actually.
This is awesome. I mean, this is really celebrating what you've done. And at the same point, I don't think a lot of people understand where you've come from. I've dug deep, no pun intended with the Doug. But I want to start off with something that we'd talked a little bit about this in the beginning. But I want to go back to when you had your surgery, when you had skin cancer, because this is something that I didn't even know about. And I want to go back to that. And I want you to kind of paint the picture of when you found out, and then what was the idea after you found out? Like, where did your mind go after that?
I love that you're asking this, because this actually really kind of even goes back to mine and Doug's beginning, if you will.
Oh, really?
Yeah, kind of. So Doug and I met in 2013, and there's definitely a story with that. But in 2015, we got engaged, and I found out that I had this little spot on my nose, a tiny little spot on my nose. And so we're planning this wedding, and I kept saying to him, babe, what do you think this is? What do you think this is? And he would say, it's nothing. You can't even see it.
And let's premise by telling people that Doug was a former undercover narcotics agent.
Yes.
And like I don't know if Doug would be that prototypical doctor.
Well, true. And it didn't look like anything. At the time, he was actually still working, but it really didn't look like anything. It was tiny, just on the tip of my nose. It was skin colored. And he said, I don't think it's anything. I said, I really do think it's something, but I'm not going to go to the dermatologist until after you marry me, because I'm not going to have them cut my nose off before you marry me.
Wow.
Hindsight, right? That's actually kind of what happened. So flash forward, we got married, and probably about 16 months after I first saw that spot, went to the dermatologist. They did a biopsy. They didn't even want to do a biopsy, but I forced them to. They didn't think it was anything either. It turned out to be basal cell carcinoma. Not really a big deal. One of those things they just slice off or burn off, no big deal. But they said that they were going to have to take it out with Mohs surgery. I had never had a stitch in my life. And so,
no kidding. Oh my God.
Yeah, never had a stitch in my life. So now they're talking about putting stitches in my face, and I'll admit,
scary.
I'll admit I was a little vain. And I was very, very scared. So I looked up the best plastic surgeon in our county. And sure enough, he did these types of Mohs surgery. And so I scheduled to go in on my birthday.
Well, happy birthday to you.
I know.
You're like, I hate birthdays.
Teeny tiny little thing. He said, it's not going to be a big deal. Well, sure enough, when they went in, they found that it did not it hadn't grown in where we could see it. It grew deep, and it grew all the way into the cartilage of my nose. And so when I came home on my birthday, I pretty much was missing the tip of my nose, the entire tip of my nose. And the next day I had a really, really radical surgery called a forehead flap. They cut probably 2 inches up into my scalp, all the way down my forehead, and had to reconstruct my nose. I had, between staples and stitches, probably 100 staples and stitches in my face.
Good Lord.
Yeah, it was wild. It was a traumatic experience, but Doug was so loving and so caring that I think within about 3 days, I was really ready to show the world what skin cancer, or what skin cancer can actually do to you. And I became a huge advocate of protecting your skin from the sun. But yeah, it was crazy.
That's crazy. I mean, all of those things going through that, and it's interesting that, I wanted to bring this up because it's so important for everybody to know that, like Doug, he deals with PTSD and all those other things. But then you're also sitting here on the other side of the coin, dealing with similar symptoms from something that was different.
Absolutely. And it really taught me that having a solid support system, and taught me how to support others in their time of need. It's so important. When you have a solid support system, you really can get through anything. And I'm pretty sure Doug would say the same thing with regard to me supporting him in the times that he has struggled. Doug well, and he struggles from post-traumatic stress and depression and anxiety, and at times they can be quite severe, and I'm his support system. And he says all the time that's why he gets through it, because he has such a good support system.
That's so awesome. That's such a powerful statement. It's like, it's not that we're perfect, it's that we know where we're going. And I want to even fast forward after your surgery, after you're going through all this stuff. You're an avid runner.
Yes.
And
although it's been a couple months for me.
Oh,
I've been really lazy.
But you, after you kind of were cancer free, you wanted to celebrate 1 year, and what did you do for that?
So about 3 weeks after my surgery, I was registered to run the Miami Marathon. And obviously that did not happen that year, because it wasn't just that one surgery. I wound up having 4 surgeries in total to kind of reconstruct everything and make everything look normal again, which really, Rob, if you think about it, I had a great surgeon. I had a great outcome, because most people, when they find out about my surgery, they say, I can't even tell.
No, that's why I was when I was reading about it, I was like, what happened?
Yeah.
You don't even know.
So I did. The very next year, kind of for that 1 year anniversary, I ran the Miami Marathon. Doug joined me on that. He did the half marathon, but it was so powerful. I remember, I think there's actually a picture of it as I'm coming into the finisher's chute, putting my hands over my eyes, because I was so overwhelmed that I had gotten through this. Basal cell carcinoma, it's not like melanoma. It's not going to take your life, but it was so disfiguring. And which was huge for me. It wasn't anything I ever expected. And just the journey along the way, how I was able to wind up handling it and kind of owning it and sharing my story for others. So when I got to the Miami Marathon and I crossed that finish line, it was powerful. I actually heard, it was so weird. I grew up in Miami, and when I was coming through the finisher's chute, I can't even remember who it was, but somebody yelled, "Go, Karen!" I heard it so clearly. And I found out
Seriously.
that it actually was somebody that I had gone to high school with many,
No
many years
kidding.
ago that happened to be there. And yeah, isn't that crazy?
That's so cool. But the mindset when you're going through the race, were there moments, and I don't know if you remember, but were there moments where like you maybe were thinking what if people were looking at you? Or were there moments when you were like just thinking about the whole process? What was it like during the race? I know the finish lines are always amazing. What was it like doing that race after all that process?
There were a lot of emotions that day. I was actually trying to run it I've run the Boston Marathon before. And so I had a goal of qualifying again to run the Boston Marathon. And I was prepared. I was very ready to make that qualifying time, though that did not happen. I had some issues about halfway through the race. And it was interesting because that first part of the race, I was so focused on what my goal was. And normally what would happen if Rob, I'm really sorry. This is probably the first time this has ever happened to you on a podcast, but my cat just jumped into a really dangerous place in the closet.
Yeah, go get him.
And I gotta get him.
Yeah, go get him.
Oh my
No,
God.
this is not the first.
Go figure. Ouch.
This is not the first. This is good stuff. This is real life. We're not talking fake like podcasts. I don't even edit these. This is real life.
Awesome.
Where was Doug when we needed him?
I know. He would have
come on.
said, he would have let the cats back again. He's so ornery. He's a bad cat. Anyway, so normally what would happen with me in a marathon, I'm very competitive with myself, which interestingly enough, we find this with first responders as well, right? They're very critical sometimes of things. And that's how I was with my racing, very critical and competitive against myself. And so that first half, I was so focused. And normally if I would have had a breakdown, for lack of a better term, a cramp or something, I would lose my mind. It would ruin the entire day for me. But at mile 13, I got a side stitch, and then I wound up getting a glute cramp, and that was it. I had to I pretty much had to walk the last 13 miles of the race with a little bit of jogging in between. But that's when I had my time to reflect on why I was really there that time. It wasn't to qualify for the Boston Marathon. I actually was there because I had persevered through something that was traumatic for me, and I made it. And I finished it, and I walked those last 13 miles with a huge smile on my face. Everybody else who was riding the struggle bus that day with me, I walked with them, talked with them, laughed with them. And it just put so much into perspective for me on what perseverance really is, and how we can really train our minds to get through anything. That said, that was my last marathon.
Well, why would you want to do any other one?
I mean, really
truly.
Yeah, I really don't.
I mean, that's pretty cool. I mean, having done Boston, it's one of those things where it's like, you're fast.
Yeah.
But
not so
to have it be one of those where you're like, I'm trying to go for this great thing.
Yeah.
And then not getting it, but then at the same point, having the mindset and the mentality to go and go, well, this wasn't why I was here, I guess.
it was really, really neat. And when I finished, Doug was there. He had finished the half marathon, and that for him was a feat because that was 2019. That was, I think, a year before he had his second back surgery. So he struggled through that. He was in pain, but he said, I'm going to do this, just so I can kind of do it beside you and support you. And that's what we do for each other.
I love that. And you guys, that's a perfect transition into Survive First. kind of, this is your baby.
Yeah.
Tell me, give me a brief overview of what is Survive First and why you and Doug kind of said, hey, we need to have this.
So Survive First, we're a nonprofit. We're based out of Florida, but we actually help first responders nationally throughout the country. We assist with peer support. We have a treatment assistance fund. We do education and training for departments and agencies. And really, we're there to help any first responder in need of mental health support from the impact of post-traumatic stress, depression, anxiety, substance abuse. We tend a lot of times to push that under the rug, substance abuse, but that is something that we see a lot, secondary usually to depression and anxiety. And so that really is what Survive First is. We founded Survive First because of our own story. As you had said a little bit earlier, Doug, he's retired law enforcement now. He retired in 2017. The last, I don't know, however many years of his career, he was an undercover narcotics agent, but also spent time in the detective bureau. He worked child sex crimes at one point, and amongst other things. And he struggles, and he had a failed suicide attempt in 2013, and in 2014 almost had a second suicide attempt, but we were able to get him into treatment. And we went through a whole lot. We were a train wreck for some time. This was before we were married, but we were living together. We had bought a home together, and we were a true train wreck. He was suffering tremendously. And so once we got through that, and we learned how to support each other and be there for each other, and learn to use the tools, we wanted to give back. We know others go through this, but if we can have any hand in helping others not to go through what we went through, if we can save a life, that's why we are here.
That's so huge. Make sure you go to survivefirst.us.
Yes.
That's one of the big things, is understanding it from both sides of the coin. I think that's one of the things that's so hard when first responders go through this. They always think that it's just the first responder that's having to go through all of the ordeals. Yes, that's, some of it, but the spouse or the partner, whoever it is going through similar things, but in their own side of it. What is that? I mean, how, because it's always about like, hey, we got to help the first responder. But it's no different than, getting your crutches cut out one piece at a time. And then all of a sudden you don't have something to lean on because that person needs help. What is it about being that support system or being in there? How do you survive that yourself?
Ooh, that's a good question.
And it's not perfect. I mean, it's not perfect, but like it's something.
One, you have to have your own support system. But what I will say is this: you have to be careful who you choose for your support system, because not everybody gets it.
Yeah.
Most people on the outside don't get it. And so you have to be very careful as a spouse, or as a family member. I would say you have to be careful who you choose as your support system. You have to make sure that you truly trust your support system. But you do. It's very important that you need a support system when your responder is in the crux of struggling. For me, education was key. And I think for me, I know the biggest reason, or the greatest reason why I was able to get through this, because, when I say Doug was struggling, and he does not hide this when he speaks, he was a mess. I'm sorry if that comes across the wrong way, but this is a real conversation, and this is the way I viewed it. He was a mess. the anger, there was infidelity, and these are things that, so that everybody knows, we are very comfortable, we're very transparent, and when we talk about our story,
Yes.
and for me, educating myself on what post-traumatic stress was, what depression and anxiety were, educating myself on what it is like to be a first responder. For me, I was looking at what it's like to be a cop, right? So I was even reading books that really were kind of meant for officers, not necessarily for spouses. I did so much research, and I should throw this in there. My research started when Doug went to treatment. I spent all of that time reading and researching so that I had a clear understanding of what was really going on, because I had fallen in love with this guy.
Yeah.
So this was not who I fell in love with. And you don't just wake up one morning and you've changed overnight. There's always a reason. There's a reason behind it. And so for me, I had a very small group of people that I trusted, that were my support system. And basically all they wanted was to see my happiness in the end. They did not give their opinions on what they thought I should do. It was all about, we just want you to be happy. And if you are happy in the end, that's all we care about. And that was huge for me, really, really seeing like, wow, these people care that much about me. And then that education.
That's amazing. The extent to which you went to be able to be a part of that. And is that, I mean, would you say knowing other spouses, is that something that's normal? Is that common?
I'm not sure how common the education is, or educating yourself as deeply as I did. Right. I look at it this way. Doug and I met in 2013, in September of 2013, and he was in treatment by January of 2014. So that was 4 months that I had known him. So I had just fallen in love with him. And I was also going through a horrible, horrible divorce. That the divorce itself was traumatizing at times. And I had a choice. I could say, what in the world is going on? I need to run as fast as I can and get away from this. I don't need this in my life, right? Or I can educate myself. And sometimes I feel like because of where I was at in this relationship, maybe that is what made me see it in a different way. And so I try to, when I speak to spouses, because a lot of our spouses that we work with, they've been married for many years. And so, all of a sudden it's, oh my gosh, what has happened? I try to remind them, and Doug also says this when he speaks, you have to remind yourself of who it was that you fell in love with.
That's huge.
You have to remind yourself of who it was that you fell in love with, whether it was 1 year ago, 5 years ago, 25 years ago, 50 years ago, and try to pick apart, why is it that they have changed? What is going on? Understand those signs and symptoms of a mental health breakdown, if you will, and ask yourself, are these the reasons for the change? And talk to your responder. Many times they'll tell you they're struggling, but you have to ask.
I love this. This is like wisdom bombs just dropping out of the sky right here. I love it because a lot of times you don't hear that side because, like I was saying before, I mean, from my side, I was always, I've got to fix this. I've got to do this, or, you don't really think about the other side. And sometimes that comes back to bite you in the ass, for lack of a better term.
Well, and one of the things that I also talk about is we all have to take ownership some way, right? So when we were going through the worst of the worst with both of us as a couple, right? Doug was in a bad, dark place. And there was a period of about 6 months where we had split up. I had moved out of the home, and I was angry, right? I was angry with all the things that were going on. Though I still loved him deeply, and I still at that time would do anything for him. And I was really angry. And so I did some things. I said some really, really hurtful things in those 6 months. Even before that, even before I had moved out, there were things that maybe I was doing at home that were causing his anxiety to be even greater. And so that's the other thing. We need to recognize that it takes it takes two. Vicki and Brent Newman, they're dear friends of ours. Vicki runs How to Love Our Cops, and they have a saying, one team, one fight. We were in California visiting them in February of 2022, and we were staying with them. And in the morning, we woke up, we were having coffee, the four of us, and we were just talking about life, having a good time. And of course, we always get into the conversation about what we're doing for first responders and what we're trying to do for spouses. And we tried to work together to find how can we do this better. And they came up with that one team, one fight. And
that's awesome.
How awesome is that? Because that
makes sense.
It's what it is. We're a team. Doug and I are a team, and whatever it is that either one of us is fighting, right? When I was fighting this battle with my skin cancer journey, when he was fighting any of his battles with depression, that's both of our fights. We're both there to fight that. We're one team, and we've got one fight, and we're going to fight it together. And so that's a powerful, powerful statement, isn't it?
It is such a powerful statement because, I mean, and then you think about the career fields that we're in. Mm-hmm. That is the nature of the career field. It's you take that aspect of what we know and we've done and everything like that and bring it into when you go home, it's the same difference. You fighting as a team.
Yeah.
That's a huge, powerful statement. And it rings true. I think that's the best part about it. It rings true in my head. I'm like, oh, that's simple.
It is. It's so simple. And when you can look at it that way, it puts a lot of things into perspective. That's not to say that I'm not here saying, every relationship can be fixed. I'm not blind to that, but there are some things that we can do to try really, really hard to support each other and to understand each other so that we can get through these difficult times when they occur.
That's so true. And that's that realistic perspective. Mm-hmm. It's the same kind of perspective that we have as first responders. Not everything that we see in our job is something that we'll be able to understand.
Right.
And I think that's, that unknown with a lot of this stuff, especially with relationships among first responders. I mean, how many years has this been before people even started to bridge the gap of like, hey, how do we address this?
Isn't that crazy?
Isn't that nuts?
It is. It's nuts. But the beauty of it is that it's finally occurring. And it started with just that first responder mental health. And now we're starting to kind of bridge that gap with, putting that piece of family in there. Because it really is. It's just it's not just the responder. It's not just even the spouse. It's the entire family. If you have a family that is unhealthy and things are going on, well, guess what? When Fireman Rob goes to work, or when Doug goes to work, you guys aren't going to be healthy because you have all this weight on your shoulders from what's going on at home. And
Right.
so it's really, really important to recognize those things, to educate yourself as much as you can, to recognize when there are little subtle signs, little subtle symptoms that just aren't in the normal daily routine of life, and talk about them.
That's so huge.
Hey,
now, here's the ultimate
okay?
question for you.
Those questions are all right to ask. Hey, are you okay?
Right.
I've noticed you're a little more agitated than normal. I still say that to Doug. He has his ups and downs. And,
I can imagine.
I point it out when he has those downs, like, hey, are you all right? Things have been aggravating you a little more than normal lately. Are you all right? And sure enough, he'll say, oh man, I'm really stressed, or I'm really tired. I need a little bit of a break, or, and then we work through it. Then we're able to work through it.
So I got the ultimate question for you there, Karen. What do you think it's going to take for this to sustain, to be something that's a habit rather than just a fad? Because in the police and fire service, they're always fads. Like, that's the hardest thing about our line of work, is like they're always looking for the latest and greatest, and then something goes away. What is it going to take to keep this in the forefront?
Oh, wow. I really, really hope that this stays in the forefront, because it is so important. We are losing responders at an alarming rate. I know Doug and Raul and Chris, they've been up in Chicago with the Quell Foundation this week, talking with Chicago PD. If I'm not mistaken, I think they have lost 13
it's crazy.
To suicide in 2022. Yes, that's crazy. And when I woke up this morning, the first article that popped up on Yahoo for me was, I think, in New York City.
I just saw that.
Yeah. They had a responder had jumped, I think, from the top of a building, right next to the building where he had just been speaking to the police psychiatrist. They were putting him on light duty, and that's devastating.
Yeah.
Now, that's not to say that's the fault of the department, but it's devastating. So this absolutely needs to stay in the forefront. And there are a lot of amazing organizations out there that are working as hard as they can to ensure that it stays in the forefront. And I think that truly is what it's going to take, is for these organizations that are out there to keep pushing and trudging along, because we are making an impact and we are changing that narrative.
Right.
And so we have to keep doing that. I think one of the biggest things that we talk about with our team at Survive First is, we feel that first responders that are not necessarily command level, they're starting to get it. They're reaching out more. In 2022, the number that reached out to us was far larger than any other year since we founded. Now, part of that may be just because our name is out there more, but I believe it's because we are getting the word out, and responders are starting to trust that, hey, there are some great organizations that we can talk to about this. The one area that I believe we need serious work in is with our command level staff. They have to buy into it. And if they are buying into this, if they are seeing the importance, then those that are underneath them they're going to see that, hey, my chief, he believes in this. He's there for me. I can be open about how I'm feeling. So I think that my hope is that this isn't going to be just a fad, that finally many have realized this is real. And it's not going away so far as we can see.
It's not going to ever go away, I don't think. I think that's one of those things where a lot of people don't, you let me put it this way, because I'm going to probably get slammed for all of this, but PTSD is one of those things, and there's a lot of different philosophies on it. There's a lot of different research and all this other stuff, but you live with it for your life. You do. You learn to adapt and cope with it. You learn to take the goods with the bads, but you do not get the opportunity to have a day off. I don't get to call vacation day with my PTSD. That's not that doesn't happen.
I'm not going to slam you for saying that, because I appreciate that. 100%. I agree with you 100%. You certainly can develop and learn coping mechanisms, just as we have in my family. But Doug's PTSD has not gone away. We just understand that this is something that we're going to have to live with, and we have those coping skills to deal with it. So, it's not going away. I hope and I pray that as we continue to normalize this conversation in the first responder community, that we will begin to see the rate of suicides go down. But there are so many pieces to the puzzle, and so many people, so to speak, that have to be part of this team. Our responders out there have to know that they can trust to be able to say, I'm struggling. I need to talk to somebody. I need some help. Even just to be able to say, I'm struggling without being judged.
That's huge. Yeah.
We can't judge. How can you not struggle? Are you kidding me?
I agree with you there.
I really can't wrap my head around it. How can our responders not struggle with the things that they see, whether it's every single day or whether it's once a year, the terrible things that they see? How can you not struggle? Because humans are not built to see these horrible things all the time. I think back to a couple of years ago at school. I watched a child almost get hit by a car. That vision, they were crossing the street and there was a crossing guard. They were crossing the street and I was standing in the parking lot and I was watching them, and this car comes flying down the road, and I don't even know what they were doing, comes flying down the road, and all I could do was just cover my eyes because I was too far away. All I could do was cover my eyes, say, oh no, and turn my head. There was nothing I could have done to save that child if they would have been hit.
Right.
That vision is so vivid in my head.
It's a perfect analogy.
Later,
yeah.
And nothing happened. Something just almost happened. And I still vividly can see that whole image play out in my head, down to me covering my eyes with my right hand, holding my left arm out, saying no, and turning my head to the left. I mean, that's how vivid that is. So how can what you have seen on the job, what Doug has experienced on the job, what any first responder has experienced, even if it's just one time.
Yeah.
how can you not find that difficult, to process and deal with?
That's such a great point. It's one of those things that it is the culture, but we can't change the culture. We can change the talk around the culture. We can make a new one. And because I think that's the biggest fear of a lot of people is they're like, oh, you're going to come in and change the culture and we're going to become too soft. It's like, it's not becoming too soft.
It's not becoming too soft.
If you're worried about becoming too soft, then maybe there's something else that's going on.
Yeah, and let me tell you something else. This just kind of popped into my head, and I truly, truly believe this. And this has to do with leadership. And I have met some amazing chiefs along the way in the last, 4 to 5 years. Some amazing leaders. When I think about leadership and culture, and we think about priority, our priorities need to be, and this goes with any job, even with policing, even with fire, corrections, dispatch, our priority needs to be our employees and our workers first. That needs to be our top priority, because if it's not, I get it, right? Keeping the streets safe, that's a priority. Sure, we can have 5 priorities, but the top priority needs to be our people. Because if our people are not healthy, if our people are struggling, then all those other priorities,
mean nothing.
They're right.
They're not going to get accomplished.
And if we put all those other priorities above our employees, if you will, if we put the other priorities above them, well, then what you're saying is, you're not as important. Go work.
You are expendable.
Yes.
Is that what we want to tell our people? Oh, you're expendable.
Right. And it really is, in my mind, it's that simple.
Yeah, I agree with you. I love talking. This is why you should be on more podcasts. This is what I'm talking about, Karen. You're killing it. You're killing
too. Oh.
Well, I love it. Make sure you go to survivefirst.us. Karen, I always end my podcast the same way. Are you ready for the 3 questions?
Oh gosh. I hope
yes, you are.
Am.
It doesn't even matter if you are. You have to be. Okay. All right. So if you can go back to your 18-year-old self and tell yourself one piece of advice, what would that be?
Oh, that's a tough one. If I could go back to my 18-year-old self, I would probably tell myself to, at an early age, make sure that you are doing what you can to love yourself,
I like that.
and love life. I had to learn that. I was always very critical of myself. I always had very, very low self-esteem through adulthood. And it wasn't until 2018 when I had that skin cancer journey that I really truly learned to love myself.
That's awesome. That's a good advice for any time in life.
Yeah.
By far. All right, you ready for the second one? Here it comes.
Okay.
Everybody's going through challenges and struggles, and a lot of times we don't know that they are. What would be 2 things that you would say, 2 habits that you would say somebody should incorporate into their life daily, whether they do it in the morning, evening, or night, doesn't matter. What would be 2 things that you would say, incorporate into your life as a habit right now to continue to move forward?
Time for yourself.
Yep.
Whether that is sitting on the beach. I say that because, we live here in Cocoa Beach. So the beach is right across the street for us.
Don't rub it in.
Although as crazy as this sounds, we actually never go to the beach. A lot of that has to do because of, now I don't lay out in the sun. When I go to the beach, I like to tan. And now I don't really tan anymore, and so it's not as fun for me. But
but you're like, oh.
You get used to the things that are you right there at your disposal, and then you never use them. But I would say definitely take time for yourself, because it's really, really easy to go down a rabbit hole and always be doing things for for others, or work, and we forget to take time just for ourselves. Get your nails done.
You remember what you just said. So I want you to remember tomorrow what you just said on this podcast.
I will. I have been trying. I have been trying really hard to practice that. I mean that when I say it, because I like it. I'm very, very guilty of not taking time for myself. And so I have been trying very hard to do that. Even sometimes just sitting on the sofa in silence. Right. For some people, sitting in silence is difficult. But I find when Doug is traveling, I have a lot of people that will say, hey, come meet me for dinner. And sometimes I just need that time. Right. I need that time for myself, and I'll just sit on the sofa in silence. And the other thing that I would say is incorporate some form of activity into your life.
So important.
Some form of activity, whether it is kayaking, skiing, walking, gardening, triathlon, whatever it is, right? Because I moved from marathoning to
triathloning. There you go.
Triathlon, but not every. You don't have to be that extreme to incorporate activity into your life, but incorporate some sort of physical activity I would say, into your daily life. It's so important. It helps me tremendously. And I notice a huge difference when I am not doing that versus when I don't want to get out and run or cycle or whatever, but I force myself to. Within 10 minutes, I feel so much better than I did when I was just sitting around saying, I'm too busy to do this, or time for yourself and physical activity.
I love it. Now, are you ready for this last one? Because this one's gonna be interesting for you, because I think you're gonna struggle with it.
Oh, I don't like to struggle with questions.
I like it. But so if you could have coffee at a firehouse table, which means no question is off the table, you can ask anything, with 3 people, they could be deceased or alive, who would those 3 people be and why?
I
told you.
That's a really hard question.
You can do it. I have faith in you.
I don't know if I can do this actually with 3 people, and I can ask any
question that you've ever wanted to know.
And I have to tell you what the questions would be?
No. You just had to tell me the people.
Okay.
Then you have coffee.
We have coffee. Rob, I feel like you have stumped me. I'm thinking of people that I can only think of, like people that. Okay.
See, now you got it. I know you had it.
I've got one. I would sit down. I don't necessarily know if I have an actual person, but I would sit down with somebody who has been met with some serious adversity, like losing a limb, or a terminal illness, and I would, because I would want to, and somebody who has persevered through it as well. Yep. So you think of, maybe our Paralympic athletes. Actually, okay. You found somebody, didn't you? That did take me to one. I followed this triathlete, and she was in the Paralympics, and she was a guide for a blind triathlete.
Yep.
how crazy is that, right? I would actually sit down with that blind triathlete, and because I would want to know how they persevere through being blind. This is another thing you probably don't know about me. I have an autoimmune disease that attacks the retinas of my eyes, and every time I have a flare up, it permanently robs me of more and more of my vision. So I live with that fear. Well, no, I don't live with that fear. It is what it is. If it happens one day, it happens. I already have large blacked out spots in my eyes.
That's why Doug looks so good.
That's why Doug looks so good.
I was totally wondering that.
But, I mean, in all honesty, if I cover up my right eye if I cover up my left eye and I were to look at your nose, the top left half of your face would be missing and the bottom right half of your face would be missing. So that'd be
a perfect conversation with that person.
Yeah, I would sit with that person and I don't know, just, pick their brain on their perseverance and all of that. Two more people. Can't we just stop at one?
You can just go. I'll give you. You only do one more. How about that? You only have to do one more. And I knew I would stump you here.
I only have to do one more. I would probably sit down with.
You can tell you're a teacher because you prompt it. Your thought process is like the prompting side. I think, from the standpoint of my mind,
I would sit down probably with somebody. All right, here's one. So we have been to Africa, South Africa twice. And the last time we were there, I went to a school in a village, and it was absolutely incredible to see these children and adults who have absolutely nothing. They don't have running water. Their school is a building made out of mud, and the floors are just dirt. And they're just so grateful for everything and singing and laughing. I think I would sit down with one of those children as an adult.
Okay.
And just, I don't know, I would just like to have a conversation with them. Because the joy that I experienced from those children at that school in Africa was something that was just eye-opening. It made you realize how that we need to be grateful for everything that we have.
Simple things, right?
Simple. Yeah. The really, really simple things, because there are people out there that don't have the simple things, but yet they're able to carry on through life with joy. Maybe it's because life is so simple and
we overcomplicate it. Exactly. Well, Karen, it has been so awesome to have you on today. Make sure you go to survivefirst.us, find out more. Karen, you have a good rest of your night. Make sure that cat doesn't go in that closet again.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you so much. Anytime. I hope I see you soon.
No problem. Talk to you soon.
Thanks for listening and supporting the Forged in the Fires podcast with Fireman Rob. Remember, don't forget to like and subscribe to this podcast, and please share this episode with a friend or family. To find out more about Fireman Rob or reach out about a question, go to www.firemanrob.com. Until next time, live your life forged in the fires.